You're not actually here, are you? Your body is. You're sitting in your chair or walking to your car, but your mind is 3 years in the past, finally winning an argument with someone who hasn't thought about you in months. Or maybe you're 6 months in the future, gracefully handling a crisis that hasn't happened yet. You're articulate. You're poised. You're finally being understood. If you often come back to reality and feel a strange grief for a conversation that never took place, you aren't just daydreaming. This is a sophisticated psychological phenomenon. You aren't crazy, and you aren't wasting time. You are running a high-fidelity simulation of your identity because the real world hasn't given you the space to be seen clearly. Today, we're exploring the architecture of the parallel self, the version of you that lives inside your head, and why your brain is obsessed with keeping that version alive. Most people think fake scenarios are just about wish fulfillment, but for most, the scenarios are more mundane, which makes them more revealing. They are relationship repairs, identity validations, and social rehearsals. You aren't imagining you can fly, you're imagining you can speak without being interrupted. This is the work of the default mode network. In a high absorption brain, the DMN doesn't just wander, it builds. It takes the messy data of a real life interaction, the stutter you had, the way someone looked away, and fixes the file. It's like a 2D minimalist illustrator taking a cluttered photograph and turning it into a clean flat vector image. You strip away the noise until only the truth of the emotion remains. Why does your brain crave this fixed version? It's often because of identity undervaluation. In daily life, you might feel like your true self is buried under social masking. You're an introvert in a loud world, or a non-conformist in a rigid system. These scenarios are the only place where your identity exists in its high-resolution, uncompromised form. Look closely at the you in your head. That version has a specific production roadmap. They don't fumble for words. They are the director's cut of your personality. Psychologically, and this is self-discrepancy theory. We have 3 selves: the actual self, the ideal self, and the ought self. Fake scenarios are the bridge where these selves meet. When you script a conversation where you finally stand up for yourself, you are trying to close the gap between your actual self and your ideal self. You are testing your voice in a safe environment because the brain doesn't fully distinguish between vivid imagination and real events. Your body actually releases the dopamine associated with that victory. This is why these scenarios feel more real than reality. When you finish a mental argument, you feel a physical release. Your heart rate might slow down because you've achieved emotional resolution. You've closed a loop, left open in the real world. For a strategist, someone used to seeing the big picture, unresolved emotional loops are like bugs in the code. Your brain won't stop running the program until the bug is fixed. But there is a price to being the director and star of your own mental cinema. It's called cognitive decoupling. To maintain a vivid internal world, your brain has to decouple from external reality. This is why you walk into a room and forget why you're there. You weren't in the room. You were in scene for the confrontation. Over time, this leads to social fatigue. Have you ever felt exhausted after a social event you didn't even attend? That's because you pre-played the event 20 different ways. By the time you actually see your friends, you've already lived through the night. The real world feels like a low-budget remake of the masterpiece in your head. It's grainier, the dialogue is worse, and you can't hit pause. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Reality feels disappointing because it's unpredictable. The internal world feels safe because you control the script. You start trusting the simulation of people more than the people themselves. You might even feel anger toward a real person because of something their character did in your head. This is the empathy gap, where we stop interacting with the human being and start interacting with our mental projection of them. In production, we use consistent character assets to maintain continuity. In your mind, you do the same. You have assets for every person in your life. But people are dynamic and often confusing. When you try to force a real person into your mental model, you set yourself up for heartbreak. To break this, we need metacognitive monitoring. Instead of just being in the scenario, you need to watch yourself having it. When you catch yourself standing at the fridge door, stop and ask, what specific emotion am I trying to resolve right now? Usually it's one of three things. 1. Validation. You want someone to say you're right. 2. Closure. You want to finish a story that ended abruptly. 3. Safety. You want to know you can handle a threat. Once you name the need, the scenario loses its power. You realize it isn't a memory. It's a symptom. It's your brain saying, I feel unheard right now. Once you know you feel unheard, you can take a real-world action. Send the text. Write the journal entry. Move the production. From the mental workshop to the physical stage. Many feel a deep sense of shame about this. You think you're wasting your life. You see the time skips, the lost hours, and you label yourself lazy. But look at this through adaptive psychology. You are likely a high-sensitivity individual. You process more data per second than average. The fake scenarios are your brain's way of data pruning. You are sorting through vast amounts of emotional information and organizing it into a story that makes sense. This isn't a bug. It's a feature of a highly sophisticated mind. It is a form of identity survival. Without these scenarios, you might be overwhelmed by the open loops of reality. They provide a buffer zone to process trauma and rehearse boundaries without risk. The goal isn't to kill the parallel self. The goal is to make the real self feel safe enough that it doesn't need to hide in the parallel world as often. How do we start living in the unscripted world? We start by accepting low-fidelity reality. Your real life will never be as clean as your mental simulations. People will interrupt you. You will say the wrong thing. The lighting will be bad, and you will forget your lines. But here is the secret. The mess is where the connection lives. In your mental scenarios, you are in total control, which means you are also totally alone. There is no other in your head. It's just a mirror of you. True intimacy can only happen when you interact with something you don't control. If you find yourself overthinking your interactions, leave a comment below. Sharing these scripts often helps take their power away. Start stealing the version of you from the simulation. If the you in your head is confident, start by using one perfect line in a real conversation, even if your voice shakes. By doing this, you are telling your brain that reality is a safe place to play. You are moving the assets from the workshop into the real world. You are a strategist. You understand the power of a well-crafted story. But don't forget, the best stories are the ones that actually happen. The fake scenarios served a purpose. They kept you safe when you felt misunderstood. They gave you a voice when you felt silent. They were a brilliant adaptation for a world that moved too fast. But you don't need to live in the workshop anymore. You've done the research. You've mapped the scenes. Now, it's time to let the production go live. It won't be perfect. It will be messy and occasionally embarrassing, but it will be real. So the next time you find yourself standing in front of the fridge, lost in a parallel track, just take one deep breath. Feel the cold air on your skin. Smile at the perfect you in your head, and then let them go. You don't need a script to be who you are. You're here now, and being here is enough. Just breathe. You're ready. So, if you want more of these, consider subscribing, because we're going to keep unpacking how your mind actually works